here in Cambridge, Massachusetts in Harvard Square with Ice from the Ice Agency. This guy made 50 Cent's first $1 million, represents Mobb Deep and other hip-hop stars and artists. Been traveling around the world representing some awesome people. We've been friends for years. We used to hang out all the time when I was living in Harvard Square. Now I'm out here for a class at Harvard, and we actually used to share the same office building. We used to hang out at the Summit Series. We've been on cruises and all sorts of really cool events. I think we met at the Summit Series cruise, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And I'd love to hear about how you actually made 50 Cent his first $1 million, how you got into this industry.
All right. Well, in full disclosure, I think maybe I helped participate in making him his first legal $1 million. But I think he probably saw a few million prior to that in his previous occupation. Additionally, he had two sort of careers in the music industry, one before he was shot and one after he was shot. Before he was shot, he was signed to Columbia Records, and his first album, The Power of the Dollar, was a very well put together album. He had singles with Beyonce, Nori, LL Cool J's producer, track masters. So he had a lot going for him. And he actually spoke differently because prior to him being shot, he was actually shot in the face, and that changed his whole voice and delivery.
Wow!
So his first album was quite promising. He toured with Nas, and I think the Rough Riders. This was in the late 98, 99, I think. And he had a good thing going for him as a new MC from New York. In fact, his most popular song during that time, I'm not sure if it was, it did make it on the album. It was called How to Rob, and he basically created a parody of how he would go around through the entertainment industry and rob every famous rapper for their jewelry.
Man, that's funny.
Yeah, it was.
Well, what's interesting and ironic about that, he showed me a video in Africa where some dude literally robs him of his jewelry on stage.
Yeah. Well, that was tricky. He was in Angola, Africa, which is, I think, definitely one of the most difficult places to travel to, never mind, perform a concert. And during the stage performance, it was a very active audience, and people were jumping on stage, and it was hard to control it. There wasn't a lot of security or barricades, and someone jumped on stage and I think snatched it off of his neck. Almost like in a split second, and dove back into the audience and disappeared. But the authorities found the guy. You can't get too far. You can't get too far with a diamond necklace in Luanda, Angola. So I think the authorities found the kid that stole the chain. They got the chain back.
Especially as big as the jewelry is for hip hop stars.
Well, I can remember being in Luanda, Angola, and being outside the hotel. And the same thing happened to me. A kid literally sprinted down the street and took the New York Yankees ball cap off my head and sprinted the other way. And it was kind of a gift at the same time. He was he wanted it, he reached for it. I said, just have it, it's all good. And he sprinted down, and I think that probably led to him getting beat up a few times that night for the hat too.
Oh man.
So yeah, I mean, I think, I was pretty young at the time. I hadn't even graduated college when I met 50 Cent. And he was going through a whole different phase in his life after a traumatic experience. It was a lucky opportunity. I was in the right place at the right time. And, his motto at that point was to make music, to distribute it any way possible, to sell it, to give it away for free, to build an audience. It was very much a guerrilla DIY approach, and of course the rewards of that were that his audience started to really grow drastically, and there was a lot of demand for people to see him live, his personal appearances. At that time, he wasn't on television, he wasn't on the radio. So he was very much a living legend, and there was it was almost like he was a wonder of the world. Come see this man who's been who's been shot 7 times and is this incredible hip hop artist. This was also after the deaths of Biggie and Tupac, so there was a lot of mystique. There was a lot of mystique around it, and folklore, and this was also post 9/11. So a lot was going on at that time that made 50 Cent into a really powerful sort of anti-hero, celebrity, and it was great to participate and help make him some money. And in his first single, he said that his shows brought him the dough. So that was in the club. He said, my shows brought me the dough. They brought me all of my fancy things, my cribs, my cars. And so we were a part of that, yeah. And we made a lot of money together, and we made history. And the most exciting part about it, because I think a lot of entrepreneurs make money, or successful ones, even unsuccessful ones, on their first rounds. But what was exciting is just traveling the world and partying.
Yeah.
That was definitely the real fun from it all back then in my 20s. I wouldn't trade my 20s for anything in the world. I'm sure you wouldn't either.
Oh yeah, I think we both had a very different life than the life we have now, because we're both married men.
Yeah.
I don't travel as much anymore. Now I live in Las Vegas, and it's actually quite a sell-down lifestyle compared to what people would expect.
Yeah, I know. You're waking up early in the morning. You're not spending all night. That's kind of the opposite experience of the tourists that are going there, and the folks that are going from LA or wherever on the weekends, just tearing it up, right?
Yeah.
So
I guess one of the things that I was thinking is, when I think about the interview that I'm doing with you now, it reminds me of an interview I did with the Hip Hop DX CEO. The CEO of Hip Hop DX is a guy named Tommy. And he was talking to how, as the publisher of Hip Hop DX, which is a company that you're very familiar with, he says that in order to network in the entertainment business, a lot of it has to deal with not him directly dealing with artists, but dealing with people like yourself, where basically people will talk to you and you will hook up the gigs, you'll hook up the marketing, hook up the access to the artists. So what was your voice? What were you looking for in order to close deals for 50 and the artists you represent now, like Mobb Deep, Apology?
I think getting your foot in the door is one thing, and having the cool factor and being able to translate from an educational world, coming out of college, to the streets, right, or to a specific culture. It takes some skill. So getting in the door is the first major challenge. Staying in and not getting pushed out, not getting cut out is a whole nother challenge. So I think growing up in Generation Hip Hop and listening to the music and watching the East Coast West Coast beef, and prior to that, watching the the early '90s movies and seeing the movies play out, and the movies like Boys in the Hood and New Jack City and Juice and all these great Hollywood movies that were released in the early '90s. Menace to Society. There's a handful of them that really it was art imitating life, light imitating art, and it was really powerful. Post crack cocaine era, or during the heart of the crack cocaine era, and also gang violence. So there's a lot that we experienced growing up in the hip hop cultural explosion on the East Coast or West Coast, like yourself. Of course, I grew up listening to East Coast hip hop. Going to shows, college shows, and so I knew the music, and I knew the element, the culture. So I got myself in there as kind of a young college kid that looked like I was a member of his entourage. And then I stayed in the business by what most entrepreneurs do, just keeping your head down and not thinking about anything but work for what turned into be many years, to follow an entire decade. There are different skill sets that apply at different phases of your career.
I ended up meeting the producer of that movie that just came out with Ice Cube and all
NWA movie.
The NWA movie, Straight Outta Compton.
Yeah.
And it was really just kind of like a meet and greet. It reminds me of what you were just talking about there, where the guys are growing up, they're hustling, and you have like the agent. So he's like booking the shows, and you have like the guys managing the talent. He's like getting to the studio, getting the What's your system like?
Yeah,
to manage artists.
From an infrastructure standpoint, I was lucky to have joined a really powerful company, management firm that had real infrastructure. A CEO visionary, Chris Lighty, who started out in the music industry carrying records and worked his way up as a tour manager and eventually a manager and a record executive, and big deal maker on Fifth Avenue, corporate deal maker to Hollywood movies and commercials, and he did well with his talent. I think talent management is an age-old business. I think people have been doing it for 100+ years in this country, so there's a real history. But he was, the guy that I was mentored by, in whose company I worked at, was a real visionary, and it wasn't a large company by normal measurements. It was only maybe 25, 30 employees, but for a hip hop management firm, it was very well organized, and we had different departments. One department focused on touring, another department focused on music production features, another department focused on more of day-to-day logistics and artist services, and so it was nice to work within an organization like that in comparison to most talent managers who are really individuals that have to when you think about how you discover a superstar, usually it's at high school or college level, and their family members or friends end up representing them, and they either learn the business very quickly or they get cut out by a bigger manager. But there are a lot of managers that I would always say it back then, which is kind of the norm now, but managers that did business from their cell phones was kind of laughable. When I first got in the business, there were still fax machines and long distance phone calls and landlines, and that was very much the norm, dealing with all that administrative stuff. So, nowadays you can do everything from your cell phone, so you can't really make fun of managers from working for their cell phones. But it was never my passion to get into live music, even though I had attended a lot of concerts growing up. It just sort of was my entry point, and I stuck with it. And fortunately, it's still a profitable sector of the entertainment industry. Live music has a lot of strong points with the merger of Ticketmaster and Live Nation over 5 years ago. That's created a really powerful company. Live Nation is growing throughout the world, and there are a lot of independent and mid-size concert production companies that are growing throughout the world. So there are more concerts in more places than ever before, and the live music industry is pretty healthy for the most part. But then you still got to focus on what makes you your living, and that's usually the talent that you work on, or your particular roster. And I've been blessed to work with legendary rappers that really have been well marketed. Their music during the 90s was distributed worldwide, from North America to Europe to the rest of the world, Australia, Asia, Japan. So yeah, it's exciting to work with big name talent as opposed to developing talent, which I haven't had a whole lot of experience with.
I've been watching a lot of your talent on YouTube, and I guess social media is now taking over for so much of the entertainment industry. How have you seen the evolution?
Yeah, I think when we were growing up, you would learn about your favorite artists through a magazine, an occasional interview on MTV or on BET, Rap City, or MTV Jams, or Rap City or something like that. Nowadays, you have a very intimate relationship with an artist through social media as a fan, and it's not just a one-way street. It's a two-way street. It's interactive. So fans are able to make comments that are heard by other fans, and to say things that echo to the artist. So it's definitely an age of interactive, entertainment. Whereas when we were growing up, artists made what they made, and they didn't really listen to much fan feedback outside of people getting excited to see them on the street or in the airport. Nowadays I think fans are really interacting with artists in a much higher touch, closer way. And social media is really important. I think that there's, the base level of marketing your events and your albums, but you don't want to do it. You don't want to. I always, I tell my coworkers it shouldn't come across as the home shopping network where you're just on your Facebook page and Instagram page selling something every day. You want to try and tie it into a story, into a human experience. Social media has changed everything, in all of our industries. Digital age is here. It's not going anywhere.
I think that a lot of it comes from the fact that like technologies are changing the way we communicate with all relationships. And I think that in your industry and also my industry, so much of it is about building a relationship with the clients and also you building a relationship with your talent, kind of like how we have the RSC instructors, you have your artists. And I thought it was so interesting meeting you because so much of what we do is very, very similar. It's just that, our tours are a little bit different than yours.
Yep.
You get female groupies, we get male ones.
Well, truthfully, without me giving a broad stroke of the entertainment industry or of hip hop and touring is, folks want to have fun. They want to go out throughout the world and, they want to go to nightclubs and meet people and live sort of this way of this dream. They are, rappers are larger than life characters. And it's not just the way they see themselves, but it's the way the world sees them, from the airport to the concert venue to the hotel to the nightclub. And so they have a lot of fun. They have a lot of fun, and their friends have a lot of fun. And it's, there's a certain energy there that, is unique. And, whether you're wealthy or rich or you're a billionaire, or, you're maybe an athlete, it still doesn't, I think very few professions and profiles come close to rappers when you're in a nightclub in any country throughout the world. So rappers definitely have, they have a presence.
One of the guys who used to work for us actually created a YouTube channel called How to Rap. And I was watching some of his videos because it was talking about how to rap, and I was interested in making a rap music video. And I've been talking to another guy who I interviewed named Prince Malik, who created a video with rappers, guys like DJ Khaled and Jim Jones and all sorts of other celebrities like Fat Joe. And I was talking to him about how I'd want to create a music video for fun. It'd be cool, catchy, and I've always thought it'd be really cool if we had RSC instructors rapping and what have you. I'm curious about your experience with the amateur rap scene, because you probably know not just the superstars.
Yeah. That's another extension of the interactive age we live in, where YouTube is the biggest archive for everything in the world, and is the biggest archive for hip hop, from the videos that get 100 million, hundreds of millions of streams, to the aspiring kid in their bedroom making a camera video, rapping in the camera. Maybe they're saying something funny, or maybe it's some kind of shock value. But we are in an age where I think growing up, when we were experiencing generation hip hop, to say you were an MC was like a pretty bold statement, and you had to back that up, and you had to invest in that, whether you bought turntables and recording equipment, and then went to a studio and recorded a demo, and you had it on this physical product, this tape. You usually had a very pretty glossy label and an album. You made a record, and now it's a whole lot easier to be a self-proclaimed artist than it was back then. There was also a very interesting association with rappers back then. It was like you were a gangster, you were a drug dealer, you were really like, you got all the girls. You had to have like one of those three things, sometimes all of them. You were tough. So like now you can just be average. You can just be a kid who just, that's kind of the Eminem effect, or some MCs, even MCs like J. Cole today, are doing a good job telling a story of just being a normal kid that went to college that has an artistic ability to rap. It's viewed more as a talent, than as a lifestyle. So I think hip hop is something that it's like soccer. It's a very easy game to play. You play it all over the world, and and more than most music genres, it's carried. Youth culture across the world has taken to hip hop. They rap in every language. So why not rap to your? I mean, I think that the best example of that is. I think people sometimes make the mistake saying that Hamilton is a hip hop play. It's not really a hip hop play. It's a play in rap, using the rap art, form to deliver the, the Broadway musical. I mean, it's worked out really well. Now, they also have a diverse cast, and there's some language in there that's very much Ebonics or hip hop language, and there's a few lines taken from famous rap songs. One of them, I think, is from an early Mobb Deep record. It's a Prodigy lyric when he says, "I'm only 19," and Hamilton says, "I'm only 19," but my mind is older, or something like that. And I haven't seen the play yet, so I didn't see that, but I've heard about it. So rap is something that can be used to. It's almost like opera, right? It's an art form.
Yeah, I love the creative expression of it. And I'm always surprised you can actually rap. Like I know that when I was out here at Harvard a couple years ago, Ryan Alice just sold Eye Contact for a few $100 million, and he was going to Harvard Business School for free. He didn't even apply; he just invited him there, and he was dropping rhymes. And I know Gary Vee thought it'd be really cool if he could be a rapper, but he always says that no, he's a businessman.
Yeah, I mean it's a challenge. Who knows? Maybe Mark Zuckerberg will take on rap in the next few years as one of his top of the year challenges. Everybody, it's one of those things like beatboxing, that was really popular back in the day. Like everyone wanted to learn how to beatbox, and it's cool. Like I think it's a fun thing to do with your kids, and like it's an interesting art form. But rap is a way of articulating, your thoughts and your ideas and being witty. It's a form of comedy. It's a form of theater. It's for some, back in the 90s, or I should say, for many generations, speaking French was romantic. Now, I guess if you can rap, you have a different level of swag. It's one of those things you want in your toolbox.
Well, I think it's really interesting to see the combination of rap and other genres of music as well. Like if I've listened to some beats, it has some kind of like hard beat from like the old school beats. Now people are adding guitars and violins and orchestras and even EDM and combine it together. I think it's really cool to have that kind of combo.
Yeah, the music is definitely coming together in interesting ways. I mean, a lot of the bands in the 90s, like Limp Bizkit, were heavily influenced by hip hop. So it's definitely crossed racial barriers, and I even watching like Katy Perry and Taylor Swift, they're heavily influenced by hip hop. Justin Bieber, it's like a source of energy that they want to tap into. So it's when and that's the same is true for successful people, whether you're a tennis player like Serena Williams, or you're a famous CEO of a company, and there's a hip hop mood. It's a vibe. It's an attitude that I think is really very American.
Well, when I think about, because I just attended this class about reparative justice, and they brought in people who use dance and rap as a form of expression of the pain that they've had to go on through having relatives being murdered and what have you. They're able to convey that story, that identity. It sounds like rap is just like writers who write books. It's like another form of expression. It's just that it's quicker, shorter, punchy.
Yeah, I think it's a great archive. If you look back at 1980s and 90s in this country, and you want to know how certain things played out politically, hyper policing, the prison industrial complex, the crack cocaine epidemic, a great source of understanding how those larger issues played out is listening to these rap lyrics and seeing how people told their own stories, right? And the thing about early rap was it was authentic, it was organic, it came from it's directly written. It's not acting, it's writing. So there's a written component of it, and then there's this whole challenge to perform that. But so much comes out in hip hop, whether it's good or bad, that deals with the mirror of our society, right? And And it's a really fun art form too. You know, there was definitely a entertainment component there when these guys would go set up their hip hop battles on basketball courts and dance and jam. But you know, there's a lot of substance in the music, without saying good versus bad, because I think that's not really the point. I think that it's you know, it's a great capsule of our generation and future generations.
How much of the artist's, you know, art is created by them in terms of like the beat, the lyrics, putting everything together? How much of it is like a team versus like them directing like the music videos and everything? Like how?
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of stories. Like I've heard that Taylor Swift and a lot of other people will have this army of people helping them with like the lyrics, the beat, and the music videos, and as opposed to them being influenced. I'm sure they have some very strong influence. But I'm curious about whether a lot of that is kind of delegated to like an awesome team, like a company.
I think the more successful you are, the more albums you sell, the larger your team is going to be, and then you have this sort of responsibility to say, do I want this major label, do I want Interscope to handle all of these services for me, or do I want to start my own company and then take those services away from Interscope, use them for certain things, and use my own team for other things. To try. The idea is not just creating jobs in your own company, but maintaining creative control of the process and also of the artistic integrity and security. You know, the last thing you want is to be a superstar and to feel like you're at the mercy of a label telling you that this is a hit record or that this is a great album, and then the term that they use in the record industry is shelving the project. You know, they have ways of like sort of testing if a song is going to be big, and then if they don't believe it's going to be big, they'll step back and they'll tell the artist to maybe try something else out or go in a different direction with their in the studio, go back to the studio. So, you know, I think that, you know, when you're an independent artist, just like you're an independent filmmaker, you have total control over the process. You know, and you have your entire life to make your first album, and then you have like a year, 2 years to make your second album, and during that process, you're dealing with completely different life experiences. You're very much a human during your road, and it's an uphill battle. It's like summiting a mountain. The best part of that summit, sometimes some will say is being at the top of the mountain looking down. Some will say it's just getting up the damn thing. So I think for artists, you know, they experience a certain reality as up and coming artists, and it's really interesting because it's authentic. And then when they become superstars, it's like they live in a mansion, and they have a lot of resources. And so some artists are uber successful and they have everything, and some aren't. Some are, you know, pretty much live a very similar lifestyle on their first, second, third, fourth, fifth. Mobb Deep, for instance, is an example of a group that, you know, has had great success and critical acclaim, but have more or less lived a very similar lifestyle, with the exception of getting older and having families and doing other things in life. But when, you know, for pop artists, and I think pop is probably more defined by your economic status as an artist than just your radio appeal. When you become a really big act, you're going to have people that are going to tell you how to run your company, just like as an entrepreneur. You know, it's really hard to maintain control over your company when it grows.
Yeah, it makes sense. I think about a lot of the similarities between our businesses, which is kind of like both of us have like that frontal kind of entertainment portion of our businesses. I mean, our business is like half education, half entertainment. I'm curious about like what kind of other industries and businesses coincide and collide with your industry, because for us, I mean, a lot of it has to do with us working with like the hotels, and those are like our venues, and then we'll sometimes have like other kind of collisions with industries. For example, right now we collided with a strip club that's being used as like our training facility, and then we'll have a hotel partner that gave us a travel search engine company and private labeled us at rsthoteldeals.com, and it's kind of like interesting.
I would say, like, from an aspirational standpoint, artists want to be aligned with private jet companies. You know, it's like when you start flying private, you really arrived as an artist, and that doesn't matter what genre or what age the artist is. As soon as you're flying private, it feels good. And then, of course, jewelry, you know, fashion, you know, wearing the best designer brands, you know, having the best footwear and jewelry on, and so those are industries that that align well with hip hop. And then, you know, nightlife, alcohol. You know, we've seen the tremendous success that Diddy's had with Ciroc, and how he's really built a story, a lifestyle attached to that brand. And there are a number of other industries. I mean, nightlife as a whole is a really fascinating industry, but we're seeing, you know, that this marriage between sports and music, you know, are artists like Drake that are basically sitting right next to the coach, you know, on the sidelines of basketball games, and just, like, you know, have tremendous influence. The Jay-Z's, the Drakes of the world, you know, the Dr. Dre's and all these guys, they're able to really show their influence at sporting events is pretty powerful. So, you know, I think that hip-hop artists, you know, historically have sold music. Artists as a whole can sell everything but music sometimes. You know, like, they're good at really marketing products and showing value and aspiration around a brand identity.
How would you describe the comparisons in, like, the culture within the hip hop industry as, like, a corporate culture, as opposed to, say, like, other industries? Like, I experience in my industry, for example, how I would talk to an instructor, relate to him, or relate to some of our clients. It's very, very different than, say, somebody who's in, like, the tech sector.
Yeah, it is. But, you know, the challenge is that race is always going to, race and bias will always play a role in that. So, you know, education plays a role in that, you know. So you have a college kid from Harvard who drops out, who wears pajamas but is a great developer, right? You know, he sits in front of VCs. They say he's brilliant. We're going to fund him. He may be a little eccentric, but we're going to give him what he wants, and we're going to support his vision. Similarly, a kid the same age that has a presence within a certain region of the country, let's say Atlanta, you know, is bubbling on the hip hop scene and gaining traction, makes a single, and the bigger labels come in, or makes a series of singles and mixtapes, and he steps into a label, and then there's sort of a duality of, like, he has talent, we see his talent, he clearly has audience, but there is this whole lifestyle that we're concerned about. There, you know, is he a good investment? So, you know, in hip hop versus other areas of the music industry, the artists are viewed as high risk investments because of the elements that they keep around them, the neighborhoods they come from, the lifestyle. They're viewed as high risk investments. So it's different from hip hop to rock. It's different from hip hop to, you know, and its music is different from television and film, and of course tech is a different story. But as we know, every entrepreneurial and you know, pursuit has stress and has challenges. So in some ways, one of the things we've learned through the Jay-Z generation is that there's a lot of resilience in hip hop. You know, that they may not where they lack in education, they compensate in just this, you know, in this steadfast, you know, resilience to work hard. To, you know, I think one thing that's misunderstood about hip hop is that all these guys do is just hang out and party. And in reality, these guys spend most of their lives in the studio, just trying to figure out what sound they want to create, what they want to, you know, how they can, you know, as we say, make lightning in a bottle, you know, make great music, and they struggle with that. You know, it's a gift and a curse.
Well, now I know that there's a very personal nature when doing with your own art. I mean, I could tell from teaching and also from making my own personal YouTube videos. I guess the relationship that you must have with these artists, is it, obviously there's got to be some deep personal relationships involved, right? I mean, it can't be just pure business. I mean,
yeah, I mean, I try not to play the same game that the artists play. Some managers do. In other words, when I first started out, I think I dressed and I talked and I thought, I moved like an entourage member, and I just really wanted to be that last guy in the entourage that wasn't really selfish, that just kind of like blended in and made things easy and was easy to keep around. And, but as you grow and as you get older in the business, your role will change. You take on more responsibility. But I never wanted to be in the spotlight like an artist. I never wanted to have the same kinds of cars or jewelry that the artist had. I thought that would be really competitive and counterproductive. I think I'd rather be viewed to them as somebody that was just low key, low key. And so, it's not so hard to believe that that managers and agents sometimes have very normal lives. They get married, they have kids, they go to pick up their kids from school, and they also deal with artists who have completely different lifestyles and that tour all around the world and have a lot of fun,
Interesting paradox, valuing humbleness, yet promoting people who have that high level desire for extravagance.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think that, but then again, if you were an artist with that way of life, you may not want somebody with the exact same personality managing you.
Sure.
This played out very clearly with Damon Dash and Jay-Z, where they both partied a lot, but then Jay-Z said, well, I'm going to put this into overdrive and get really into business and really change and evolve. And his partner didn't do it at the same speed, or things didn't click, and this is how partnerships break up, So I'm not just saying it's the values, but I try to stay as humble as possible around artists, and to be very diplomatic and to speak less. I think that sometimes small talk wasn't really my thing, so I cared about my artists. I cared about their livelihoods and them having the means and the income to be able to buy whatever they wanted to buy and have nice things. But it's I wasn't just a banker. It was also my responsibility to try and put artists in front of audience and to put them on stage on the right stages at the right time with the right promoters. So. There's a little bit of artist development there, in addition to sort of like growing a business and dealing with the money.
So as someone who's managing the talent, how much of what you do involves working with promoters as opposed to doing some of the promotion yourself?
Nowadays, we used to the old book would say that the manager does the very minimum, basically. You put the show on sale, you tell the promoter to do their job, it's your job to promote, like get to promoting, keep us posted on ticket counts every week. Nowadays, promoters will come to the artist and say, can you guarantee 3 or 4 Facebook posts? Can we do Facebook ads? Can we maybe have the artist give away tickets or do some kind of contest? And that will continue. So I think that artists are learning how to be great self-promoters. They're realizing that some of the things that they talked about for years, we can promote our own shows. They're actually getting an opportunity to do that. They're getting an opportunity to promote themselves and to launch. I think it's exciting for an artist to announce a show on their social media, for an artist to do Facebook ads and to see the traction. Because that's still the most powerful voice, I think, that promoters promote a lot of shows. So fans want to see it come directly from the artist. That's one of the things that Facebook allows, is this very powerful direct geo-marketing.
Well, what's one of the highest highs of a campaign or something that you've launched for an artist that's been something that's memorable for you in your career?
No, I think the most memorable concerts were always taking an artist that had never been to a particular country, right? And taking them to that country and putting them on a massive stage in front of a really large audience and getting them paid a lot of money. And so there's those sort of 3 experiences. I've never been to this part of the world or this country. I'm now in front of oceans of fans, and I'm being paid a ridiculous, fee. I shouldn't say ridiculous, a fair fee. They're being paid what they're worth, what the market will allow, and then all the other things that play out in that experience. The fun that they have in that country, their entourage, the partying, the fans being able to see one of their favorite artists. You see a certain form of westernization play out. That's kind of exciting, positive form of it.
Yeah, I feel you. A lot of that I could definitely feel, because I felt even when I was traveling around the world that a lot of our job was that westernization process, sharing our culture from what we have within the pickup industry, kind of like you're doing the hip hop industry.
Well, you're teaching swag, right? You're spreading the swag.
And I love getting our instructors also that same experience. It's just that our oceans are much smaller than a lot of your boys right now.
Yeah, there are. I mean, I think that there are different world currencies and talents throughout the world. With people, but a universal truth is people like to have fun. You see it play out in every country. They all have different ways of partying, but it's more or less the same thing. So we music is an age-old business. What you do is an age-old business, and we're just trying to. I think I won't speak for yourself, but it's nice to make the world smaller, more open, more connected. And I don't regret any public concerts that I do, even if the money came from a certain source. I still think the end result is people buying tickets to see a great performance. Private concerts can be a little bit sketchy at times, and so there is responsibility that goes along with that if you're doing a private show for a billionaire or for someone with an interesting background, like one of Gaddafi's sons was doing a lot of parties during the Venice Film Festival, which I think he was one of the producers of. So you always have different different responsibilities with who you're entering into a deal with. But I think I fundamentally believe in public concerts and people being able to travel openly and have a good time. That's one of the things I value most about the business.
Yeah, I remember you telling me about some of the dangerous situations you've been in.
Yeah, I mean, and now the world is even like, I think that during an election year, and just with the digital age, every day we're seeing something horrible happen with terrorism, and it's defeating a little bit as somebody who's spent the last 15 plus years doing concerts, because a country like Turkey, which was always an awesome place to go to, and Istanbul, we've done dozens of shows there, is now a place where you say, oh shit, is it safe to fly there, and you have a responsibility. So it's scary, and it's not just Istanbul, it's France, it's Belgium, it's Nice. I mean, gosh, like nowhere is safe anymore, and unfortunately nightclubs, sports arenas, and public concerts are targets for terrorist activity. So that's a little bit upsetting, but the industry will get through it. The travel bans will hopefully get lifted, and stability will prevail in the end, I guess.
Well, I think it's interesting that both of our industries are also not just entertaining, but also controversial on so many different levels. And so you'll get the press very often coming up against both of us. Yet now we have social media that are outlets control our message and reach our fans, no matter what the press says. I'm curious about how that's played out with you in your career as well.
Well, the artists that I worked with, some of them have gotten nothing but good press in their careers, and some of them have gotten the mixed bag of everything, some would say all press is good press, and that's a philosophy of how you deal with your difficulties in your business and in your career. there's traditional bad press, like this album sucks, and you instead of getting a perfect 5 mic, or a perfect score on your album, you get a shitty score, and that's bad press, it's bad review. And then there's scandals, there's like life scandals, and there's people accusing the artist of doing really bad things, or the things that tap into your personal life that's really unfair. There's all different sorts of press, and in this day and age, it's not just the press, it's the public. The public really has an opinion, and they congregate, and they're like, we see it play out in pop culture, and we see it play out in politics right now. People are so active online, they're so opinionated, and they're so tough. And you wish you had the chance to sit down with some of the. I'm sure the artists are like, I can't even channel this. They get so much hate. It's this weird duality of a paradox of like you're a superstar and you think the world loves you, but the world actually is jealous of you and they hate on you and they want to be you. 50 Cent's protege Lloyd Banks at his shows, I would always joke and I'd say like 90% of the kids in the show are like aspiring rappers. And while you're rapping to them, they're like rapping their own lyrics to themselves and to you back on stage. So that's the competitive nature of the business, and press. I think it's how you respond. It's whether you choose to respond or not choose to respond. It's a very tricky thing. So, it's not something that I've had to deal with personally. It's not my expertise professionally. I'm not a publicist, and I think that publicists have what determines a good publicist from a bad publicist is like how, sometimes I hear these press releases that are just awful, It's like if you're going to make a statement and own the action, take responsibility for what happened, I think that you can sometimes go a little further than the generic response that are just like these really kind of bland, written, logical responses by publicists or lawyers, and you're like, this wasn't really written by the artist, so it's not authentic.
No, I feel you on that. And when we got into somewhat of a scandal with Julian Gate, I wanted to find people who I felt had a really good authentic voice. So we started working with the attorneys and publicists for guys like Mike Tyson and Eminem and Marilyn Manson and Insane Clown Posses, and those guys had crazy time because those guys were listed as an official gang by the FBI.
Yeah.
But just.
I could see your brand falling into a similar exercise of our freedom of speech and the way of life we have in America and how valuable it is for us. I mean, there are venues that will say, we don't want this artist to play because of their lyrics, and it's like, are you serious? And like, this is America, we're not trying to incite a riot, we're not trying to say anything, it's not really, but people are offended by lyrics. In hip-hop, it's lyrical content, and in your business, it's lifestyle, but, I think when as I spent a little bit of time talking about earlier, it's not about good versus bad. This is an art form. Some people will be offended by it. At times, it's made to make people laugh. At times, it's made to make people dance. At times, it's meant to make people uncomfortable. So every business, and I think hip hop is a for-profit, for-purpose business. I think there's always a purpose whenever somebody writes something down on paper, and for some artists, maybe like the Gucci Manes and some of the trap music that's coming out of the South, people don't understand what the artist is trying to accomplish, but there's something there. There's something there that's uncompromising, and that's American ingenuity and entrepreneurship, as it plays out through music or through anything else, through business. So, but we're in a country where where there's a lot of critics of anything you do, right? It's competitive, and I'm sure that you have different interest groups. Look, for years, look at hip hop early on. You had, Ronald Reagan bringing NWA to the White House, saying, you guys are inciting certain negative opinions and beliefs about cops and gang violence and this and that, and they tried to shut it down. So you're doing something. As they say, you're nobody till somebody hates you.
Well, that reminds me of a quote from the movie American Gangster. I don't remember the exact words, but I remember that the main character goes to this mafia lord, and they want to make a partnership. And he was talking to him about how he's making a lot of money, becoming more famous, but he's doing with so many people that are giving him more problems nowadays, including government, etc. And the mafia lord said, "Look, if you want to become," or something to the effect. I'm not going to say the exact quote,
Yep.
but it's something to the effect of, if you want to make money and become famous, then people are going to hate you. If you don't want people to hate you, you want to be liked, then don't make money, don't become famous.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, that's the reality. I think it's kind of lonely it's lonely and it's difficult, and there's probably a lot of challenges. I've dealt with that with my own business. I feel like I've made certain decisions maybe at times to choose to just have a good lifestyle, and sometimes you miss an opportunity. So, you don't want to be complacent, but you also don't want to miss out on life. Time is the most valuable thing. So, I think that I believe in the separation of music and business at times, and then at times I see the opportunities and to have it all, right? To work on a cause that you love and art form you love, and to also be able to make a good wage and to work with people you like working with. I think that combination of things is really desirable and part of a formula for success. But at the same time, every industry is different. Technology is growing fast. It's competitive. Startup cultures, it's like in it to win it. So every industry is different and has its own sets of challenges. Music is one of those unique things where you may not make as much as a banker, but you can have a lot of fun, and everyone that's on the tour with the artist is having a really unique life experience.
Yeah. Well, I think that you got to do things for passion.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
Even the creation of this YouTube channel was based upon me wanting to think outside the box and have that creative purpose in a sense outside the typical operations of our company. And I like that.
I like discussions, and I think that we're starting to see a transition from blogs to podcasts. People want to listen to professionals, folks with experience and life experience, business experience. There's something really fascinating about the growth of podcasts these last few years and interviews. I think it's a good opportunity, and we also are in a certain space of like just such short content, on Facebook or on Instagram or on Twitter, that it's nice to sit down and have a conversation with somebody and try and talk things out for a little longer length than a quick bite, sound bite from the news. So
yeah, I like the idea of also doing these mastermind interviews. I got to go deeper with my friends. And,
yeah,
and,
it's a good it's good to talk. It's good to have framed questions. When somebody asks you a challenging question, it's nice to get an authentic answer. My accountant would always say, you don't know what you don't know, as it relates to, your life experience and making decisions. I have a pretty good understanding about what I do, but we're always learning from each other. I've learned a lot from what you've accomplished at scale. I may go around and work with hundreds of concert promoters, but it's a different business because we show up, we do the show, and we leave. And that's the end of the relationship. If I had to work with one of those concert promoters year-round and somehow tie them into a business model, it would be a different experience. It'd be more challenging in a lot of ways. So there's some really unique benefits, but also, I'll make money with that concert promoter on one show. That one show in that one location during that year, it may not reoccur the following year. So, there's, you look at a global network that one establishes in the music industry. These music managers and agents are so powerful, but they're also limited in the process because you're selling this really valuable product that really, that has a beginning, middle, and end. There's an expiration. An hour after the show, the ticket's not worth anything. So there's this timeline, and it's a very similar business from what you deal with, because we both deal with travel, we both deal with hotels, we both deal with immigration issues, we both deal with foreign currencies and banks, we both deal with people and what they want to do and how they want to have fun and how they want to live in different countries. But you're building a different level of infrastructure than what, and you're dealing with a lot of other issues with doing business in those countries over a long period, multiple, over many years. So, we have very different perspectives. I see the world in like a sprint. You're running a marathon throughout the world year after year. So, that's one of the important things about cross-business relationships is being able to share the experiences that one brings from music, one brings from government, one brings from business, and other applications and industries, fashion, and how we all and just exploring the similarities between our businesses, but also the distinct differences. So it's always good to talk to you about how you're growing your business internationally and what markets you're focusing on, what countries are starting to develop.
Yeah. Well, thanks, bro.
Sure.
I guess I'll catch you in Vegas. I have a board of directors meeting to fly down to in LA tomorrow.
Okay.
There's a quick stop in Vegas as well to catch up with my wife, celebrate my anniversary.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. Seems like you're finding a good balance between business and personal life. What's some of the secrets to that? Are you guys having good rituals with
weekly date night helps.
Date night, yeah.
We do a lot of that in terms of like spas and dinners and times to hang out.
Yeah. Well, I've had a lot of good rituals with my 4-year-old, taking him to school. That's been great. So, it's good talking to you, Nick.
Yeah, thanks, bro. Cheers.
Cheers.
I hope you guys enjoy hanging out with Ice and me today. And if you want to see more interviews, definitely subscribe to my channel, because every Thursday there's another interview, and I'd love for you guys to check them out. If you want to go deeper with me, check out RSCFoundersClub.com. It's an awesome mastermind group. Having a mastermind group of guys like Ice or peers, people that are on the same path as you, is awesome. This is exactly what you get. Get full details, check it out. But subscribe to my channel and ask questions below. If you enjoyed this interview, you want questions answered, I answer them every Monday. Just post your questions in the comments. I'd love to answer them.